Is reviewing a 2011 sexual assault case against Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. Cuban was never charged, and he denies allegations reported in an Oregon newspaper about a woman claiming Cuban touched her inappropriately while they were taking a photo at a downtown Portland nightclub. This is the latest in a series of recent issues for the Mavericks. Last month, an article published by Sports Illustrated in late February highlighted that female employees were subjected to a hostile work environment. The following day, Mark Cuban said that it was a huge mistake to bring back a Mavericks reporter after he was involved in multiple domestic violence incidents. Then, last night, the NBA announced it will review the 2011 sexual assault allegation against Cuban. For more on this, here's First Take.
Antonietta, thank you. All right, guys, this is bad. So no charges for Mark Cuban, but this obviously hasn't been a good few weeks for him. With this accusation, the NBA's fined for admitting to taking, the history of workplace misconduct he reportedly allowed within the Mavericks organization. Stephen A., I'll start with you. What kind of trouble is he in?
Well, it depends on the veracity of the allegations leveled against him, obviously. I would tell you that it's going to be hell to pay for somebody. Whether it's Mark Cuban or somebody else remains to be seen, because of Mark Cuban, I don't know if anybody has gotten on the bad side of Mark Cuban where Mark Cuban feels wrong. But he's going to fight. He's going to fight back. If he is demure, if he is timid, if he is quiet, then I'm raising an eyebrow, because that's not the Mark Cuban I know. The Mark Cuban I know, if something is wrong, he is going to raise holy hell, and he's going to come out swinging at anything and anyone who would dare try to attach any kind of veracity to allegations or charges he believes to be false. I don't know what has happened. Are we inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt? Chances are most individuals, period, covering the NBA are inclined to do so, because he's an individual that has always come across as a straight shooter, which is why all of these reports have been so shocking. When you have females that have been members of the Dallas Mavericks organization who say they were more comfortable in the locker room with the players than they were in the administrative environment of the Dallas Mavericks organization, that does raise an eyebrow. The buck stops with him. You have to understand that. When you realize that the buck stops with him, then you're obligated to take into account that most of the time, Mark Cuban was around the players. In the locker room, on his Stairmaster, outside the locker room, on the road with players, as opposed to being in the office. But he's the boss, so you can't completely exonerate him from any level of culpability. In this case, however, the allegations of sexual assault are not directed at one of his employees. It's directed right at him. And so because of it, him denying it is one thing. But I can tell you, and I can speak comfortably saying this, the Mark Cuban we know, just denying it ain't his style. He is the kind of person that will come out swinging, and that will tell us where all of this lies in terms of where his mindset is, because we've all seen him to be the kind of individual, there's an email, text message, or whatever the case may be. Mark Cuban does not stand by and remain silent and timid when he believes something false is attached to his name. We shall see where this goes from here.
There's a presumption of innocence against accusations in our legal system, particularly if there are no charges, right? But even then, there's still a presumption of innocence. And I would say the way this will be digested publicly, right, legally, the way this will be, and I think people deserve others' personal benefit of the doubt also. And so I would give Mark Cuban the benefit of the doubt, of course, particularly I said no charges were brought. But I would say the way the public will digest this, and think about it, someone is accused of making an inappropriate advance toward a woman, let's say, a powerful man. How does the public perceive that? Well, is it one accusation from one woman and charges were never brought? They will perceive it very differently. That will be perceived differently publicly than if now everyone starts coming out of the woodwork, and there are 8, there are 10. It becomes a Bill Cosby situation. 100 different women, whatever the number is, are all saying very similar things. What are the odds? I mean, not zero, but very, very, very low that it could possibly, they're all just making up the exact same thing. And so I would say Mark Cuban's not there. However, the public will digest this a little differently than they would have otherwise, had it not been for the fact that his organization is under scrutiny now for being a workplace that was hostile toward women, basically. I don't know how else to say it. And so that puts this in a different light, where I would think if it's still one accusation, he still gets the benefit of the doubt from most personally, but that now eyebrows are raised a little bit differently because it might be seen in the context of him heading an organization that at the very least didn't seem to give a lot of thought toward providing a appropriate workspace for women.
Well, he dropped the ball, and there's no doubt about that. But what I'm saying to you is, as a person covering the NBA for over 2 decades, having to communicate with Mark Cuban on many, many occasions, the Mark Cuban we all know, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody else, Max, because I know you've talked to him and all that other stuff. But I'm saying there's a difference between the man that you interview on the air and the man that you run into in the locker room and outside the locker room and at games for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm telling you, communicating with him on that level, him just denying the allegation, that's not him. He is going to come out swinging. That's usually his MO, rather. Whether that is now, I don't know.
And of course, you hope it's not true.
Yeah. We'll see.
And of course, you hope it's not true, like any accusation about bad behavior you hope isn't true.
Yeah, it's not looking good, but we got to get the facts before we pass any judgment, of course. Still to come, my final take on how All-Stars Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan are changing lives by speaking their truth about battling mental illness. And coming up next, it's the ACC quarterfinals between top-ranked Virginia taking on Dang Adele and his Louisville squad. They are hyped. That's next, right here.